Как только вы оказываетесь в комнате, люди начинают вас изучать. Они анализируют ваше лицо, оценивают тон голоса и пытаются интерпретировать молчание. Хотя чаще всего это происходит неосознанно, движимое страхом, желанием или неуверенностью. Карл Юнг действовал с хирургической точностью и осознанностью. Он верил, что сила заключается не только в том, что вы говорите или делаете, но и в вашей способности быстро проникать в суть других людей. Чтобы манипулировать кем-то, нужно его понимать. Чтобы защитить себя, нужно предвидеть его действия. А чтобы доминировать, необходимо распознать человека еще до того, как он поймет, что его изучают. Карл Юнг знал, что внешность бывает обманчива. Каждая улыбка может быть маской. Каждое рукопожатие может быть скрытой угрозой. Каждый комплимент – испытанием. Поэтому он разработал не предположения, а тактики. Вот 14 психологических приемов для мгновенного считывания характера, мотивов и скрытых слабостей любого человека. Первая тактика – наблюдать за тем, как они обращаются с невидимыми. Забудьте о том, как они ведут себя с вами. Это легко подделать. Вместо этого наблюдайте, как они общаются с людьми, которых считают незначительными – официантом, стажером или человеком, у которого нет влияния. Карл Юнг учил, что власть незаметно развращает слабых. Когда человек чувствует себя в безопасности и раскрывает свою истинную натуру, он всегда покажет, как будет относиться к вам, когда ваша ценность в его глазах упадет. Уважение к тем, кто не имеет власти, более точный показатель характера, чем доброта к равным, поскольку в первом случае нет стимула притворяться. Вторая тактика – заставить их замолчать и смотреть, как спадает их маска. Неуверенность часто проявляется в постоянных разговорах. Люди заполняют тишину не потому, что любят говорить, а потому что боятся быть увиденными без отвлекающих факторов. Если вы хотите быстро прочитать человека, говорите меньше него. Можно даже не говорить ничего. Делайте более длинные паузы. Пусть ваше молчание будет громче их слов. Вскоре они начнут делиться лишней информацией, стараясь произвести впечатление, выдадут свои страхи и раскроют мотивы. Молчание – это не отсутствие звука, а давление. И под давлением люди выдают то, чего никогда не собирались говорить. Третья тактика – ничего им не давать и наблюдать за их реакцией. Это одна из самых суровых тактик Карла Юнга. Не давайте одобрения, любви или выгоды. Просто присутствуйте, холодный и непроницаемый. Почему? Потому что люди всегда будут относиться к вам в зависимости от того, что они могут от вас получить. Когда вы ничего не даете, вы видите их истинное поведение. Если они становятся холоднее, значит, их доброта была лишь ради выгоды. Если они становятся более старательными, значит, они не уверены и жаждут одобрения. Если они остаются нейтральными, у них есть эмоциональный контроль, и они могут быть опасны. Чем меньше вы даете, тем больше они раскрываются. Четвертая тактика – нарушить их привычный контроль. Некоторые люди говорят по заранее заготовленному сценарию. Они отработали свое обаяние, уязвимость и даже честность, чтобы управлять тем, как их воспринимают. Карл Юнг знал, что таких людей труднее всего прочитать, если не сбить их с толку. Как? Задайте неожиданный вопрос. Прервите их шутку молчанием. Ответьте на лесть с подозрением. Смените тему, когда они набирают обороты. Когда их выступление прерывается, они спотыкаются, и в этот момент вы видите их истинную сущность. Пятая тактика – проверить их верность на мелких потерях. Не ждите предательства, чтобы узнать, насколько кто-то предан. Создайте испытания сами, откажите в небольшой просьбе, не дайте им того, чего они ожидали, немного задержите что-либо. Затем наблюдайте, остаются ли они уважительными или начинают критиковать, дистанцироваться или сплетничать. Люди с мышлением, как у Карла Юнга, понимают, что верность проявляется не тогда, когда человек побеждает, а тогда, когда ему отказывают. Малейшее «нет» может раскрыть самую большую правду. 6-я тактика. Оценивать их фокус, а не слова. Люди могут лгать, но их внимание никогда не обманет. Во время разговора наблюдайте, на что они обращают внимание. Если их взгляд скользит к влиятельным людям, они жаждут статуса. Если они игнорируют тех, кто не имеет высокого положения, они уважают только выгоду. Если они проверяют телефон, разговаривая с вами, вы для них всего лишь временная замена, а не приоритет. Если они подражают вашим выражениям лица, они пытаются завоевать расположение. Карл Юнг не слушал слова, он отслеживал внимание, потому что внимание — это инвестиция, и то, куда его направляют, говорит о том, что для человека важно, а что нет. 7-я тактика. Упомянуть вымышленную слабость. Расскажите о себе что-то небольшое и неправдивое, что звучит как недостаток. Например, «Я склонен переосмысливать вещи», «Раньше я был слишком доверчивым» или «Я не всегда хорошо справляюсь с конфликтами». Затем наблюдайте. Если они используют это против вас, насмехаясь или применяя ваши слова, они оппортунисты. Если они это игнорируют, они либо уважительны, либо осторожны. Если они в ответ раскрывают настоящую слабость, они хотят установить связь и чувствуют себя в безопасности. Создавая вымышленную уязвимость, вы проверяете их истинную реакцию на слабость, не рискуя ничем реальным. 8-я тактика. Заставить их подождать. Нет более быстрого способа понять уровень их претензий, чем задержать ответ. Ответьте на сообщение позже. Будьте неясны в планировании. Задержите предоставление чего-либо дольше, чем ожидалось. Люди с претензиями начнут паниковать, обвинять или станут пассивно-агрессивными. Терпеливые адаптируются и остаются устойчивыми. Карл Юнг искал не только верность, но и стойкость, потому что нетерпеливые первыми становятся токсичными, когда дела идут не так, как они хотят. Время раскрывает характер. 9-я тактика. Увидеть, кого они копируют. Все копируют кого-то, осознанно или нет. Их тон, стиль, манеры. Карл Юнг считал, что, изучая того, кого человек копирует, можно расшифровать его амбиции. Если они подражают сильным, они жаждут контроля. Если популярным, они хотят внимания. Если добродетельным, они стремятся к моральному превосходству. Человек, которому кто-то подражает, это тот, кем он тайно мечтает стать. Как только вы видите, кого они отражают, вы знаете, к чему они стремятся. 10-я тактика – вызвать зависть и наблюдать за изменением лица. Скажите что-то ненавязчивое, что возвышает вас, о недавней победе, возможности или комплименте от кого-то. Затем внимательно следите за их лицом. Улыбка слишком натянута. Они моментально переводят разговор или вдруг начинают умалять ваши достижения. Это зависть. И зависть, по мнению Карла Юнга, является самым опасным эмоциональным сигналом, поскольку она всегда предшествует саботажу. Зависть не кричит, она мелькает. И однажды, увидев ее, вы не сможете забыть. 11-я тактика – спросить, что они ненавидят. Забудьте о том, что они любят. Это легко подделать. Лучше спросите, каких людей они не выносят или какое поведение в других их раздражает. Потому что ответ редко касается других. Это зеркало. То, что люди говорят, что ненавидят, обычно отражает их собственные подавленные черты. Те, кто утверждает, что ненавидит надменность, часто сами тихо надменны. Те, кто заявляет, что ненавидит ложь, часто являются искусными лжецами. Те, кто говорит, что ненавидит слабость, на самом деле боятся быть увиденными слабыми. В осуждении вы находите признание. 12-я тактика. Следить за тем, что заставляет их отводить взгляд. Прямой взгляд – это сила, но то, что его прерывает – это истина. Упомяните определенные темы, такие как деньги, статус, стыд, прошлые неудачи или динамика власти, и следите за их взглядом. Глаза будут дергаться, смещаться или опускаться в тот момент, когда что-то задевает слишком глубоко. Карл Юнг понимал, что глаза – это не только окно в душу, это выход для подавленных эмоций. То, что заставляет глаза убегать, раскрывает, чего больше всего боится разум. Тактики 13 и 14 являются самыми откровенными из всех. Именно их Карл Юнг использовал для защиты тронов, навигации по предательствам и манипуляции умами окружающих. Когда вы их применяете, вы не просто читаете человека, вы контролируете, как он видит вас. Эти две последние тактики касаются не наблюдения за другими, а манипуляции их восприятием вас, чтобы выявить их правду. Потому что пока слабые пытаются читать других, гоняясь за ответами, Карл Юнг провоцировал ответы, которые приходили к нему. Он создавал напряжение, а не доверие. Он не спрашивал, он провоцировал. Эти последние тактики предназначены для того, чтобы раскрыть истинную операционную систему человека, не наблюдая, а создавая сцену. 13-я тактика. Стать зеркалом, от которого они не могут отвести взгляд. Большинство людей проходят через жизнь, нося маску. Они играют, очаровывают, притворяются. Но Карл Юнг обнаружил, что когда вы отражаете тон, позу или язык тела человека медленно, ненавязчиво, без лишней усердности, вы вызываете глубокое подсознательное самопризнание. Они видят себя в вас, и то, что они делают дальше, раскрывает то, что они скрывают. Например, отразите их небрежный тон. Становятся ли они более напряженными, пытаясь доминировать над вами? Отразите их уверенность. Отступают ли они, не зная, как с этим справиться? Отразите их неуверенность. Становятся ли они превосходящими, даже насмешливыми? Действуя как их отражение, вы создаете психологическое трение. Большинство не заметит этого, но их инстинкты ответят, и этот ответ покажет, являются ли они искренними, оборонительными или манипулятивными. Чем больше человек меняется, когда видит возвращенную энергию, тем больше он изначально играл роль. 14-я тактика. Сначала обезоружить уважением, прежде чем нанести удар наблюдением. Обычный человек ожидает осуждения, поэтому он приходит вооруженный оправданиями, защищенный и настороженный. Гениальность Карла Юнга заключалась в том, чтобы начинать общение с неожиданного уважения, подчеркивая интеллект собеседника. Признайте одно из их достижений. Подтвердите что-то, что они сказали, даже если вы не уверены в этом. Зачем? Потому что, когда вы создаете для кого-то психологическую безопасность, они снижают свою защиту. И тогда вы задаете настоящий вопрос, к которому они не готовы, который обходит их броню. Например, можно сказать, вы явно продумываете вещи. Какой самый большой страх стоит за вашими решениями? Или вы кажетесь невероятно уверенным в себе, когда вы впервые научились изображать эту уверенность? Или вы явно хорошо разбираетесь в людях? Как вы понимаете, когда кто-то читает вас? Уважение создает открытость, Но это хирургический вопрос, который срывает маску. Люди более честны, когда чувствуют, что ими восхищаются, и именно тогда проявляются настоящие данные. Теперь, когда вы понимаете, как читать людей психологически, начинается второй слой. Чтение их стратегически. Карла Юнга не заботили черты личности сами по себе. Он изучал людей как ландшафт, потому что каждая слабость, привычка и слепое пятно могли быть использованы, повлиять на них или быть защищены. Вы можете использовать их слабость как точку опоры. Как только вы видите, что кто-то скрывает, вы получаете не только понимание, но и контроль. Не для уничтожения и даже не для манипуляции, а для тихого влияния. Если кто-то боится быть покинутым, дистанция становится вашим инструментом. Если они жаждут восхищения, тонкое неодобрение заставляет их стремиться к вашему уважению. Если они зависят от контроля, непредсказуемость обезоруживает их. А если они опасны, если они скрывают кинжал за улыбкой, то вы уже знаете, куда именно нанести удар или как заставить их уничтожить самих себя. Это то место, где психологическое чтение становится стратегической войной. Профилируйте их в архетипы, но никогда не произносите это вслух. Карла Юнг не навешивал ярлыки на людей в разговоре. Он навешивал их в своей голове. Он не говорил, что он нарцисс или она не уверена в себе. Он наблюдал, классифицировал и действовал, соответственно, не раскрывая диагноза. Почему? Потому что ярлыки убивают власть, люди с ними борются, но лечение без диагноза проходит незаметно. Некоторые быстрые стратегические архетипы включают скрытого угодника, который жаждет одобрения и может быть управляем с помощью похвалы, но становится опасным, когда ему в этом отказывают. Безмолвного карьериста, который кажется лояльным, но внимательно следит за вакуумом власти. Уважайте их, но не доверяйте близости. Хрупкого гения, умного, но нестабильного. Их блестящее мышление может быть полезно только, если его эмоционально контролировать. Громкого защитника, который чрезмерно объясняет и оправдывается почти всегда, скрывая вину или глубокую неуверенность. Вам не нужно говорить им, кто они. Вам просто нужно знать, как с ними обращаться, не давая им понять, что вы это делаете. Обратите внимание, как люди реагируют на слово «нет». Нет лучшего способа проверить характер, чем через отказ. Карла Юнг полагал, что сила человека проявляется не в победе, а в самоограничении. Попробуйте отказать в том, на что они рассчитывают – в одолжении, комплименте, возможности или даже в крохе внимания. Отступите и понаблюдайте. Если человек остается спокойным, это признак дисциплинированного ума. Если же реагирует тонко или эмоционально, значит, им управляет эго. Если их тональность резко меняется, значит, они лишь играли роль. Отказ от их воли показывает их истинную эмоциональную основу. Важно выявить, кого они хотят впечатлить. Это ключ к пониманию по Карлу Юнгу. Люди никогда не говорят просто так. Они стремятся занять определенное положение. Каждое слово, сказанное в вашем присутствии, часть стратегии, даже если неосознанной. Задайте себе вопрос, для кого они сейчас выступают? Если для вас, значит, ищут вашего одобрения. Если для группы, значит, заявляют о своем превосходстве. Если для кого-то отсутствующего, раскрывают скрытую цель. Следите за их глазами, обратите внимание, чье одобрение они ищут. Каждая шутка, каждое мнение, каждый жест – это шаг к привлечению чьего-то внимания. Поняв, кого они пытаются впечатлить, вы узнаете, кому принадлежит их преданность. И это может быть не вы. Обратите внимание на то, чем они гордятся, а затем ищите противоположное. Люди часто хвастаются какой-то чертой, чтобы скрыть обратное. Кто-то, кто говорит «я всегда честен», может манипулировать выборочной правдой. Человек, утверждающий «я не люблю драму», часто притягивает хаос. А тот, кто заявляет «я всегда ставлю других на первое место», может быть тайно обижен или контролирующим. Карла Юнг считал, что чрезмерное акцентирование на какой-то добродетели – это сигнал, потому что настоящая сила не кричит, она просто есть. Когда кто-то громко говорит о какой-то ценности, исследуйте ту, что скрывается за ней. Обычно она более правдива. Это не догадки, это инструменты для обострения вашего преимущества. Вы больше не видите людей как запутанные переменные. Вы видите их как код программы реакции. Но есть еще одно измерение, потому что как только вы сможете читать их, вам нужно выбрать, как играть с ними, давать ли им то, что они хотят. Поддерживать ли маску, проверять, разрушать или возвышать. Потому что с властью приходит ответственность, а с глубоким пониманием риск отстраненности или доминирования. Но Карла Юнг не избегал этого риска. Он принимал его. Он видел в людях не препятствия или врагов, а возможности для продвижения игры вперед. И теперь, когда вы можете читать любого человека, следующий шаг – научиться использовать это умение, чтобы побеждать, оставаясь за кулисами. Как только вы научитесь точно читать людей, ваша сила будет заключаться не в том, чтобы знать их секреты. Она будет заключаться в том, чтобы знать, что делать с этими секретами, не давая им понять, что они раскрыты. Это момент, когда интеллект Карла Юнга переходит от восприятия к влиянию. Вы больше не просто наблюдаете, вы направляете, и они следуют вашим подсказкам, даже не осознавая этого. Большинство людей стараются влиять через убеждения, логику, искренность. Но Карла Юнг не стремился быть понятым. Его интересовало, чтобы его слушались. Тонко, молчаливо, последовательно. Первое правило влияния на человека, который не знает, что на него влияют, заставить его поверить, что он действует по собственной воле. Сначала отражайте его желание, затем перенаправляйте его. Как только вы поймете, чего человек хочет – статус, внимание, безопасность – не противоречьте этому. Отразите это обратно ему. Амбициозному льстите его стремлению, неуверенному подтверждайте его усилия. Доминирующему признайте его контроль. Это снижает их бдительность, они чувствуют себя увиденными, понятыми. И как только они разоружены, вы перенаправляете. Вы связываете их желания с вашей целью. Например, если они хотят признания, намекните, что они получат его больше, если примкнут к вашему видению. Если они хотят влияния, покажите, как следование вашему плану даст им больше видимости. Не боритесь с их желанием, перехватывайте его. И как только они следуют вашему пути, они думают, что это была их идея. Второе. Используйте стратегическую уязвимость, чтобы они говорили. Люди любят говорить о себе, особенно когда чувствуют, что помогают вам. Карла Юнг использовал эту истину как скальпель. Он раскрывал небольшую контролируемую слабость, что-то правдоподобное, но незначительное. Например, «Я не всегда полностью доверяю своим инстинктам при первых впечатлениях». Или «Иногда я слишком увлекаюсь работой». Или «Я не так хорош в управлении людьми, как вы». Зачем? Потому что это создает эмоциональный дисбаланс. Они теперь чувствуют себя превосходящими, что поднимает их эго, полезными, что формирует эмоциональную инвестицию, и доверенными, что способствует ложной близости. В таком состоянии они открываются, они начинают раскрывать то, что обычно скрывают. Не потому, что вы их заставили, а потому, что они чувствуют себя в безопасности и выше вас. Ум, который чувствует себя в безопасности, говорит свободно. Ум, который чувствует себя выше, говорит правду. Теперь вы разблокировали оба. Третье. Раскройте половину секрета для создания ложного равенства. Люди доверяют больше всего, когда верят, что доверие взаимно. Карла Юнг предлагал частичную правду или контролируемое признание. Достаточно, чтобы казаться откровенным, но никогда не опасным. Например, я научился на собственном опыте не полагаться на людей, которым думал, что могу доверять. Или меня часто недооценивали вначале, пока я не перестал быть добрым. Это создает ложное зеркало. Они думают, что вы такой же, как они, и в своем облегчении они снижают свою защиту. Затем они раскрывают настоящую уязвимость. Это обмен, которым Карла Юнга владел. Вы даете им частицу головоломки. Они дают вам всю карту. Четвертое. Позвольте им определить себя и используйте их определение. Одна из самых мощных манипуляций – никогда не определять человека. Позвольте им определить себя. Например, они могут сказать: «Я тот, кто ценит верность превыше всего». Или «Я ненавижу, когда люди тратят время». Или «Я не позволяю эмоциям контролировать меня». Теперь у вас есть их самоидентификация, что означает, что вы знаете, что они пытаются защитить и как формулировать просьбы, идеи или возражения. Итак, они следуют своему сценарию. Если вам нужно, чтобы они сделали что-то против своих инстинктов, просто привяжите это к их заявленным ценностям. Например, вы тот человек, который ценит верность. Я уверен, вы справитесь с этим. Или я знаю, вы не терпите неэффективности. Вот сокращенный путь, который нам нужен. Вы не убеждаете. Вы подтверждаете их идентичность, направляя ее в свою пользу. И они не будут сопротивляться, потому что верят, что остаются верными себе. Пятое. Создайте репутацию, которую они должны поддерживать. Люди больше боятся потерять, чем жаждут приобрести. Поэтому дайте им что-то для защиты. Карла Юнг создавал репутации людям до того, как они их заслужили. Вы можете сказать: «Вы известны тем, что держите свое слово». Или «Люди уважают вас, потому что вы не ввязываетесь в мелкие политические игры». Или «Вы всегда тот, кто поддерживает баланс». Теперь это записано, и давление возрастает. Если они поступят против той идентичности, которую вы им публично дали, они почувствуют риск выглядеть фальшивыми, непоследовательными или слабыми. Так они остаются в роли, они поддерживают ваше определение, потому что вы превратили его в социальный договор. И вот так вы устанавливаете поведение, не отдавая приказов. Шестое. Утеките достаточно информации, чтобы направить восприятие. Вам не всегда нужно напрямую влиять на кого-то. Иногда все, что нужно сделать, это позволить им услышать правильную вещь. Это может быть история о том, как вы перехитрили конкурента. Шутка, намекающая на то, что вас нелегко обмануть, или случайное замечание, показывающее, что ваши стандарты высоки. Эти утечки создают ожидания и перестройку. Люди корректируют свое поведение вокруг вас на основе впечатления, которое, как они думают, сами открыли. И это именно то, что вы хотели. Потому что, когда люди считают, что поняли вас, они перестают задавать вопросы. А когда перестают задавать вопросы, становятся предсказуемыми. Седьмое. Дайте им выиграть сначала, чтобы потом контролировать результат. Один из самых холодных ходов Карла Юнга заключался в том, чтобы давать людям ранние победы. Позвольте им думать, что их идея победила, их лидерство необходимо или их понимание уникально. Он потакал их самолюбию небольшими безобидными победами, в то время как конечный результат разрабатывался в его пользу. Потому что он знал, что люди защищают то, что, как им кажется, они создали. Защищают то, что, как им кажется, было их идеей, и остаются верными, когда чувствуют себя важными, даже если их используют. Позвольте им написать первое предложение. Вы контролируете заключение. К этому моменту вы уже не просто читаете людей, вы строите структуры вокруг их поведения. Вы не реагируете на них, вы предсказываете их действия, но высший уровень юнгианства в чтении не касается других. Он касается того, что ваша способность читать других раскрывает о вас самих. В каждом высокочувствительном уме есть тень. Потому что, когда вы видите всех насквозь, вы рискуете поверить, что выше их всех. Вы начинаете двигаться без эмпатии. Вы начинаете управлять ради забавы. И именно здесь опасный ум должен совершить свое последнее превращение. Не просто в того, кто может читать, влиять или переигрывать, но тот, кто точно знает, когда следует завершить игру и исчезнуть, оставаясь победителем. На высшем уровне понимания, подобном юнгианскому, игра перестает быть игрой, она превращается в инстинкт. Ты больше не размышляешь о том, как понять человека. Ты просто делаешь это. Входишь в комнату, и потоком идет информация. Кто не уверен в себе, кто играет роль, кто обладает тихой силой, а кто наблюдает за тобой так же пристально, как и ты за ними.
You know what's crazy? Most people walk through life wondering why nothing ever changes for them. They hustle, they grind, they put in hours, but deep down they still feel stuck. And here's the secret nobody tells you. It's not about how much you work, it's about what you focus on. Because what you consistently focus on becomes the reality you experience. Think about it. Your focus is the steering wheel of your life. And if you're not holding it with intention, the world will steer it for you. In this message, I'm going to break down how the universe responds to your focus, why you keep attracting the same situations over and over, and how to flip that pattern forever. Stick with me until the end, because the truth I'm about to reveal will not just inspire you, it will rewire the way you live, the way you think, and the way you attract everything into your life. What you consistently focus on becomes the reality you experience, because the human mind has a powerful way of filtering the world according to the signals you repeatedly send it. The truth is, every single day, millions of pieces of information are coming at you from every direction. Yet your brain is not wired to process all of it at once. Instead, it uses a system called the reticular activating system, a mental filter that decides what gets your attention and what gets ignored. That system doesn't choose based on what's important to your success. It chooses based on what you've trained it to recognize through repetition, belief, and focus. So if you're constantly focusing on fear, doubt, or problems, your mind begins to seek out more proof of fear, more proof of doubt, more proof of problems, until it becomes your daily reality. On the other hand, if you deliberately condition your focus toward opportunities, solutions, and growth, suddenly your world seems filled with them, not because they weren't there before, but because your focus has trained your mind to see them. This is why two people can live in the same city, face the same challenges, experience the same economy, and yet one will see nothing but obstacles, while the other sees nothing but possibilities. The difference isn't the outside world, the difference is their focus. Focus is the lens that colors every single experience you have. It's like wearing glasses. If you put on lenses tinted with scarcity, everything looks limited. If you put on lenses tinted with abundance, everything looks like a chance to grow. You don't live life as it is, you live life as you focus on it. Consistency is the key. One moment of positive focus doesn't transform your reality, just like one workout doesn't transform your body. But what you consistently focus on, day after day, builds momentum. If you consistently focus on being grateful, your reality begins to feel blessed. If you consistently focus on your goals, your reality begins to align with achievement. If you consistently focus on your limitations, your reality begins to shrink down to match them. It's not about intensity once, it's about repetition until it becomes your mental habit. Most people underestimate how much their focus has shaped their past. Look back at times when you felt stuck. Chances are your focus was on everything that could go wrong. Look back at times you felt unstoppable. Chances are your focus was on the outcome you were chasing, not the obstacles in the way. Every experience you've had was filtered through the focus you held at the time. And here's the most liberating part. If focus created the life you have now, then a shift in focus can create the life you desire next. Your reality is malleable because it responds to what dominates your inner world. If you wake up every morning and focus on what's missing, you live in a reality of lack. If you wake up and focus on what's possible, you live in a reality of progress. This isn't magic, it's cause and effect. Focus changes your emotions change your actions create your results, and your results shape the reality you experience. So what begins as a simple act of directing your mind outward ends constructing the world you live in. That's why the most successful people guard their focus like treasure. They don't allow distractions, negativity, or gossip to hijack their attention, because they know that what they let dominate their mind eventually dominates their life. Your mind is a transmitter. It sends signals that life reflects back to you. Your mind is not a passive receiver that just absorbs what happens around it. Your mind is a transmitter that's constantly broadcasting signals into the world. Every thought you hold, every belief you nurture, every emotion you sustain is like a frequency you're sending out, and life has no choice but to reflect that signal back to you. Think of it like a radio tower. Whatever station you tune into is the one you broadcast. If you keep your mind tuned to doubt, you broadcast doubt. If you tune into confidence, you broadcast confidence. The universe responds not to what you casually think once in a while, but to the dominant frequency you keep sending out through your focus and emotions. This is why people who constantly think about problems seem to attract more problems, and why those who stay focused on possibilities seem to encounter opportunities everywhere they go. It's not luck, it's alignment. The signals you transmit shape the reality you encounter because they influence both how you perceive the world and how the world perceives you. A person who transmits negativity will notice and magnify negativity in every situation, while a person who transmits positivity will notice opportunities that others overlook. The same event, the same circumstance, produces two very different realities based on the signal being transmitted. Your mind also influences people around you in ways you don't always realize. Have you ever noticed that when someone walks into a room with a heavy negative energy, it pulls everyone down? That's the transmission of their mind affecting the atmosphere. On the flip side, when someone enters radiating certainty, confidence, and optimism, it elevates the entire environment. That's not coincidence, that's the law of transmission. People feel what you transmit, and they respond accordingly, either pulling away from you or gravitating toward you. So the signals you send out don't just shape your internal world, they shape your relationships, your opportunities, and your entire external experience. Most people broadcast unconsciously. They allow their fears, their doubts, their frustrations to dominate their mental airwaves, not realizing that every day they are transmitting a signal that attracts more of the same. The discipline is to become intentional with your broadcast. Ask yourself, what signal am I transmitting right now? Am I broadcasting gratitude or complaint? Am I broadcasting confidence or hesitation? Am I broadcasting abundance or lack? Because whatever you send out essentially, life mirrors back to you. The universe is not listening to your words as much as it is tuning into the frequency of your focus. You can say, I want success. But if the dominant transmission of your mind is fear of failure, life hears fear, not success. You can say, I want love, but if your signal is doubt, insecurity, and unworthiness, life hears doubt, not love. This is why it's not enough to wish, not enough to casually hope. You must align your internal broadcast with the reality you want to experience. And once your inner transmission and your outer desires line up, you begin to notice doors opening that were invisible before, people showing up at the right time, and events unfolding in ways that feel almost orchestrated. That's not magic, that's resonance between your broadcast and the opportunities around you. The universe multiplies whatever you give your attention to, positive or negative, because attention is the nourishment that grows everything in your life. Whatever you keep feeding with your energy expands. Just like a seed in the ground will expand into a plant if you keep watering it. If you pour your attention on fear, you feed fear. If you pour your attention on faith, you feed faith. The law doesn't discriminate, it doesn't judge, it doesn't decide what's good or bad for you, it simply multiplies what you supply. This is why you cannot afford to treat your attention casually, because every drop of focus you spend is like water poured into a seed, and that seed will eventually grow into something you will have to live with. Most people live unaware of this law. They think their worries are harmless, their doubts are just thoughts floating around, their anger is just venting, but every time they give attention to those states, they add energy to them, and over time they grow stronger until they dominate their lives. That's why worry doesn't just stay worry. It expands into anxiety, into sleepless nights, into missed opportunities, into a reality where fear rules every decision. That's why complaining doesn't just stay complaining, it multiplies into resentment, bitterness, and a pattern where nothing ever seems good enough. The multiplication is subtle at first, almost invisible, but over weeks, months, and years, it shapes entire destiny. On the other hand, when you deliberately choose to give attention to what empowers you, you trigger the same law in your favor. Gratitude multiplies into more reasons to be grateful. Focusing on growth multiplies into progress and achievement. Focusing on love multiplies into deeper relationships and connections. The universe does not care whether you've chosen weeds or fruit. It simply multiplies what you've planted through focus. You cannot escape this multiplication. You can only decide what gets multiplied. Think of attention like sunlight. If you shine sunlight on a flower, the flower grows. If you shine sunlight on weeds, the weeds grow. The sun doesn't pick sides, it just multiplies what is placed under its rays. Your attention works the same way. The question isn't whether multiplication will happen. The question is, what will you allow to be multiplied? The power of this law is that it gives you control over direction, but the danger of this law is that it doesn't pause for your indecision. Life is always multiplying something in your experience. If you aren't consciously choosing what to focus on, you are unconsciously feeding something by default. That's why indecision and drift create realities people never wanted. They didn't choose failure, but they kept focusing on fear until failure grew. They didn't choose unhappiness, but they kept focusing on dissatisfaction until unhappiness took root. The universe doesn't wait for clarity, it multiplies what's dominant in your attention. And here's what most people forget. Small daily attention adds up. The little things you give attention to repeatedly may not seem powerful in the moment, but the universe keeps multiplying them behind the scenes. Looking at what you lack for 5 minutes a day may not seem harmful, but over months, it multiplies into a deep sense of scarcity. On the other hand, focusing for 5 minutes on gratitude each day multiplies into abundance, fulfillment, and peace. The compounding of attention is relentless. This is why those who master their attention look like they have luck on their side. It's not luck, it's multiplication working for them instead of against them. Dominant thoughts, not passing wishes, shape your destiny because the human mind responds to the patterns it is soaked in, not the random impulses that pass through it once in a while. A wish is fleeting, a spark that comes and goes without power, but a dominant thought is a fire that burns consistently, molding your emotions, dictating your choices, and carving the path of your future. Too many people confuse wishing with focusing, and they wonder why their lives don't change. Wishing is casual. Dominant thoughts are intentional. Wishing is shallow. Dominant thoughts are deep currents that direct everything else in your inner world. Your life is not built on the wishes you make occasionally. It is built on the thoughts you repeat continually. If your dominant thought is that you are capable, life bends to that belief. If your dominant thought is that you are helpless, life bends to that belief. The subconscious mind doesn't respond to what you casually hope for. It responds to what you bombard it with daily, what you dwell on, what you allow to become a mental stronghold. This is why people who wish for success but live with dominant thoughts of fear never move forward. The wish is too weak to override the current of their dominant thinking. Think about it. If you drop a pebble into a river, the current doesn't change course for that pebble. It carries it away. A passing wish is that pebble. But if the river itself shifts direction, Everything in it follows. A dominant thought is that river. Your destiny is the sum of the direction your mental river is flowing in, not the small pebbles of useful thinking you throw into it. Dominant thoughts shape your habits. They influence what you notice, how you interpret events, how you react, and what you choose. If your dominant thought is growth, you see every challenge as a lesson. If your dominant thought is limitation, you see every challenge as proof you can't succeed. Two people can face the same obstacle, but their dominant thoughts create opposite reality. One sees a dead end, the other sees an opportunity. The obstacle didn't decide, the dominant thought did, and dominant thoughts don't just shape perception, they shape physiology. Science shows that repeated thoughts rewire the brain through neuroplasticity. A dominant thought literally changes the structure of your brain, making it easier to think in alignment with it again. Over time, your mind becomes programmed to repeat what it has been focused on the most. This is why the rich often get richer. The confident become more confident, and the fearful become more afraid. Not because destiny is unfair, but because dominant thoughts multiply themselves until they dominate behavior and outcome. A wish may excite you for a moment, but a dominant thought becomes an identity, and your destiny always follows your identity. If you wish for wealth, but your dominant thought is, "I'll always be broke," your subconscious will sabotage opportunities and keep you aligned with being broke. If you wish for health, but your dominant thought is, "I'm always sick," your body will respond to that command until illness feels inevitable. But if you train your dominant thoughts toward strength, toward growth, toward possibility, then your actions, emotions, and reality will eventually align with that identity. This is why discipline of thought is non-negotiable. It's not enough to get inspired once in a while. It's not enough to hope when you feel good. It's not enough to dream when the mood strikes. You must deliberately choose the thoughts that will dominate your inner world, because those thoughts will dominate your future. Dominant thoughts are the architects of destiny, while passing wishes are just whispers carried away by the wind. Focus is energy directed toward vision, not distractions, because every thought you hold and every moment of concentration you give carries with it a measure of your life force. People often think energy is only physical, that it is measured in strength or endurance, but the deepest and most transformative energy you possess is the energy of focus. When you put your mind on something, you are pouring life into it, just as surely as if you were watering a seed in the soil. The tragedy is that most people spend the majority of their energy not on vision, not on what moves them closer to their goals, but on distractions, on meaningless noise, on problems that don't matter and circumstances that won't last. The truth is that focus determines whether you live with power or with weakness. When your focus is scattered, your energy is scattered and nothing of substance grows. But when your focus is concentrated, it magnifies your strength beyond what you thought possible. This is why people who are ordinary in talent but extraordinary in focus often outshine those with great talent but scattered attention. Energy flows where focus goes, and the results of your life are nothing more than the reflection of where you've been investing that energy. Distractions are the great thieves of destiny. They steal your energy bit by bit until nothing is left for the vision that truly matters. Every notification that pulls you away from your goals, every moment spent comparing yourself to others, every cycle of worry about things outside your control, all of these are leaks in your energy. It's like trying to fill a bucket with holes in the bottom. No matter how much effort you put in, the water drains away. Vision, on the other hand, is the container that holds your energy. When your focus is fixed on vision, every action builds, every effort compounds, every bit of energy fuels progress instead of waste. The difference between the extraordinary and the average isn't always intelligence or opportunity, but the ability to direct focus like a laser toward what matters most. A magnifying glass can burn a hole in paper when the sun's rays are concentrated through it, but the same sun, spread out over the whole field, warms but never burns. Focus is that magnifying glass for your energy. Without it, you spread yourself thin, busy but unproductive, active but ineffective. With it, you cut through obstacles that seemed impossible before. Vision demands energy because it is a long-term creation. It requires you to resist the lure of the immediate, to pull your attention away from distractions that promise quick stimulation but leave you empty afterward. Vision requires sacrifice, not of joy but of waste. It requires you to say no to the unimportant so you can say yes to the essential. And when your focus aligns with vision, your entire life begins to organize itself around that path. Opportunities that match your vision become visible, people who support your vision appear, and momentum builds because your energy is flowing in one direction instead of being pulled in 100. Most people underestimate the cost of distraction. They think losing a few minutes here or there doesn't matter, but distraction doesn't just take time, it fractures your energy. It takes minutes to get distracted, but hours to recover the deep state of focus that builds real progress. Every time you allow distraction, you train your mind to be weaker, to chase stimulation instead of discipline, to give up control instead of claiming it. But every time you resist distraction and return to vision, you train your mind to be stronger, to channel energy where it counts, to live as a creator instead of a consumer. Focus is not about intensity for one day, it is about consistency over time. Anyone can focus for a moment when they're inspired, but champions focus when they're tired, when they're discouraged, when distractions are screaming for their attention. They know that every ounce of energy directed toward vision builds a foundation that distractions can never give. They understand that focus is not a luxury, it is survival, because without it, energy is wasted, vision is lost, and destiny drifts. Private focus eventually shows up in public results because what you nurture in the unseen will inevitably manifest in the seen. The hours you spend in private concentrating on growth, training your mind, refining your skills, and building your inner world will one day reveal themselves through your outer achievements. Focus cannot remain hidden forever. It is like a seed planted in the soil. For a time, it is invisible, covered in darkness, but as it is watered and nourished, it breaks through the surface and becomes undeniable. Most people want public results without private focus. They want recognition without discipline, rewards without sacrifice, applause without preparation. But the universe does not operate that way. The law is simple. What you focus on in private is what you will eventually live out in public. If your private focus is weak, distracted, inconsistent, then your public results will reflect weakness, distraction, and inconsistency. If your private focus is strong, deliberate, and aligned with your vision, then your public results will reflect strength, clarity, and success. This is why champions are made in silence long before the crowd sees them. The athlete who dominates on the field has already dominated in countless hours of unseen training. The speaker who inspires thousands has already spent years focusing privately on their message. The entrepreneur who builds an empire has already focused privately on their vision when nobody else believed. Public greatness is simply the echo of private focus amplified. The danger is that people believe their private focus doesn't matter because nobody sees it. They think, nobody knows if I waste time, nobody knows if I skip practice, nobody knows if I lose discipline. But the truth is, results know, reality knows. The public stage is unforgiving because it always exposes what was practiced in private. You cannot fake mastery. You cannot hide a lack of preparation. The spotlight doesn't create success, it reveals it. And if private focus has been neglected, the results will show that neglect for all to see. But this law also works in your favor. When you commit to private focus, even if nobody notices at first, you are building momentum that will one day be undeniable. People will call it talent, luck, or gift, but you will know it was private focus compounding until it burst forth into public success. This is why it is so vital to focus on the right things when no one is watching. Focus on growth, not approval. Focus on discipline, not shortcut. Focus on consistency, not applause. Because when the moment comes, your public results will reveal the truth of your private focus, whether you want them to or not. A scattered focus creates a scattered life, while clarity creates power. Because the direction of your attention decides the direction of your existence. Imagine your energy like a stream of water. If that stream is divided into 100 tiny trickles, none of them have enough force to carve a path. They evaporate, they sink into the soil, they disappear without leaving an impact. But when all that water is channeled into one powerful current, it cuts through rock, it shapes valleys, it becomes unstoppable. That is the difference between a person who allows their focus to scatter and one who chooses clarity. The scattered mind tries to do everything and accomplishes little. The clear mind does fewer things with greater intensity and creates impact that lasts. In the modern world, scattered focus has become the default state for most people. Notifications, endless entertainment, the pull of social media, constant comparison, the pressure to respond to everything immediately. All of it fractures attention into small, shallow pieces. And when your attention is fractured, your life becomes fractured. Your results reflect distraction. You may be busy all day, but progress feels slow. You may be active, yet you are not effective. A scattered focus creates exhaustion because energy is spent in many directions without producing meaningful return. Clarity, on the other hand, brings power because it aligns your thoughts, emotions, and actions toward a single vision. When you are clear on what matters, you stop wasting energy on what doesn't. Decisions become simpler because you know exactly what leads you closer to your vision and what pulls you away. Doubt begins to fade because clarity gives direction. Stress begins to fade because clarity removes unnecessary choices. And power begins to build because every ounce of energy is concentrated in one direction instead of being dispersed in 100. The most successful people are not those who do the most, but those who do the most important things with total focus. They understand that saying yes to everything dilutes their strength, but saying yes only to what aligns with their vision multiplies their strength. They build their lives around clarity, and clarity rewards them with power. That is why one person can spend a lifetime dabbling and never achieve mastery, while another with less talent but greater clarity can become world-class. Mastery requires focus, and focus requires clarity. The human mind thrives on clarity. Without it, stress grows. Without it, procrastination thrives. Without it, people live in confusion and call it busyness. But when clarity is present, the mind sharpens, energy flows, confidence rises. It's like clearing the fog from a window. Suddenly you see where you're going, and that vision propels you forward with strength. Clarity is not just a tool, it is a force. It takes scattered energy and transforms it into concentrated fire, and fire with direction is power. What you broadcast emotionally is what you attract circumstantially, because emotions are not private experiences contained only in your heart. They are vibrations that radiate outward and shape how life responds to you. Every emotion you hold is like a frequency you send out, and that frequency pulls circumstances, people, and opportunities into alignment with it. When you broadcast joy, gratitude, confidence, or determination, life reflects those emotions back through supportive circumstances and open doors. But when you broadcast fear, bitterness, anger, or insecurity, life reflects those as well, attracting obstacles, resistance, and closed doors. This is why two people can enter the same room and walk out with completely different experiences. One person enters radiating insecurity, and people sense it, treat them accordingly, and opportunities seem scarce. Another person enters radiating confidence, and people are drawn to them. Doors open and opportunities appear abundant. The room didn't change. The people didn't change. The broadcast changed. What you project emotionally creates the way others experience you, and in turn, how they respond to you. Your emotions broadcast even when you say nothing. Body language, tone of voice, posture, and micro-expressions all transmit the state of your inner world. Life listens more to your broadcast than your words. You can say, "I'm confident," but if you are broadcasting fear, people feel the fear, and life reflects the fear. You can say, "I'm abundant," but if you are broadcasting scarcity, you repel abundance, because the frequency you send out doesn't match the words you speak. The law of emotional broadcast is unforgiving, but it is also empowering. It means you are never a victim of circumstance alone, because the way you feel internally has a powerful effect on what you encounter externally. If you want better circumstances, the first step is to shift what you broadcast emotionally. Instead of waiting for life to give you a reason to feel grateful, broadcast gratitude first and watch life multiply reasons to be grateful. Instead of waiting for success to give you confidence, broadcast confidence first and watch opportunities appear that require and reward that confidence. Most people do not realize they are responsible for their own broadcast. They believe their emotions are controlled by circumstances, so they wait for life to change before they allow themselves to change. But the truth is, life is mirroring their broadcasts. If they continue to broadcast fear, life continues to send circumstances that reinforce fear. The cycle continues until they decide to break it by deliberately shifting their emotional broadcast. And this shift doesn't mean pretending. It doesn't mean denying pain or ignoring challenges. It means choosing which emotions will dominate your broadcast even in the presence of difficulty. A person can acknowledge fear but still broadcast courage. They can acknowledge lack but still broadcast abundance. They can acknowledge pain but still broadcast gratitude. And when they choose deliberately, their circumstances begin to shift. Not because life suddenly became easier, but because their broadcast attracted new possibilities that were invisible under the old frequency. When you heal internally, when you shift emotionally, when you begin to broadcast from a place of strength, life responds in ways that feel almost miraculous. But it isn't a miracle, it is the law of attraction through broadcast. You are always attracted. The only question is whether you're attracting what you want or what you fear, and the answer lies in your emotional broadcast. Don't focus on current conditions, focus on the vision of what can be, because if you anchor your attention only on what exists right now, you remain chained to the limitations of the present moment. Conditions are temporary, but vision is eternal. Conditions show you what is, while vision reveals what could be. Every great achievement in history was born not from people who accepted current conditions as final, but from those who dared to imagine something greater despite what reality looked like in front of them. When you focus only on your current conditions, you shrink your possibilities to the size of your environment. If you are broke and all you focus on is being broke, your thoughts reinforce scarcity, your emotions reinforce lack, and your actions reflect limitation. Life mirrors back the same condition because you are locked into that frequency. But when you shift focus toward vision, you step outside the prison of your circumstances. You begin to see beyond the walls of limitation. You no longer ask, "What do I have now?" but instead, "What is possible for me if I align with my vision?" That question unlocks creativity, energy, and momentum that conditions cannot provide. Vision is a seed. Conditions are soil. If you only stare at the soil, you miss the seed's potential. The soil may look dry, rocky, unyielding, but the seed inside carries infinite possibility. A person of vision waters the seed instead of complaining about the soil. They nourish it, protect it, believe in it, until one day what was invisible becomes visible. That is why visionaries are called dreamers at first, and leaders later. They ignore the soil's limitations because they see the seed's power. The danger of focusing on current conditions is that conditions are often deceptive. A barren field may look lifeless, but hidden beneath could be roots preparing to sprout. A struggling business may look doomed, but hidden inside could be the breakthrough strategy that changes everything. A person in difficulty may look stuck, but inside them could be resilience building strength for a future victory. If you only look at conditions, you declare defeat too soon. But if you hold vision, you recognize that conditions are temporary and can change. Vision requires imagination, and imagination requires courage. It is easier to describe what you see now than to envision what could be. But the people who change the world are those who live in the future. They imagine long before it becomes reality. They act as if it already exists. They speak as if it already exists. They build habits as if it already exists. And eventually reality catches up to their vision. You are not ignoring conditions, you are choosing not to be controlled by them. You acknowledge them but refuse to let them define your destiny. You use them as raw material to shape something greater, because your focus is not on the problem but on the possibility. And whatever you focus on expands. Conditions shrink when vision expands, because vision pulls you towards solutions, innovation, and breakthroughs that current conditions cannot produce on their own. Current conditions may be humble beginnings, but vision transforms them into extraordinary outcomes. Vision lifts the eyes beyond the ground of what is, toward the horizon of what can be, and the moment you begin focusing on that horizon, you create momentum that carries you forward despite conditions. So let's bring this full circle. From the very beginning, we talked about how what you consistently focus on becomes the reality you experience. We uncovered how your mind is a transmitter sending signals into the universe, how your dominant thoughts shape your destiny, and how your focus carries energy that multiplies either distractions or visions. We explored how private focus always shows up in public results, how scattered focus creates scattered lives, and how clarity turns ordinary effort into extraordinary power. We uncovered the truth that emotions are broadcasts, that your circumstances mirror your inner frequency, and that you cannot be chained by current conditions if you choose to hold on to vision. And finally, we locked in the greatest truth: the law of focus is neutral. It doesn't care whether you choose to feed it power or poison. It will multiply whatever you give it. That's why everything in your life right now is a reflection of what you've chosen to focus on, consciously or unconsciously. And the beautiful thing is, if you don't like what you see, you can change it today. The law of focus is like a mirror. It reflects what you give it, nothing more, nothing less. So if you're ready to shift your life, start by shifting your focus. This is your moment. This is your decision. If this message lit a fire in you, hit that subscribe button right now and join us here on Tony Robbins' Track, where we break limits and build unstoppable focus every single week. And I want you to drop in the comments, from today I choose clarity. Say it, own it, claim it, because the moment you declare it, you begin to attract it.
Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this. You're facing a setback, and everything around you feels like it's falling apart. The dreams you've worked so hard for seem distant, and the weight of failure is heavy on your shoulders. But what if I told you that this moment, this very moment, could be the catalyst for one of the greatest comebacks of your life? What if the setback isn't the end, but the beginning of something powerful? In today's video, we're diving deep into 10 proven strategies that can turn your toughest setbacks into your most triumphant comebacks. These are the same strategies that successful people use to rise from adversity, not just to recover, but to come back stronger, more focused, and more determined than ever. You don't have to stay stuck in the past or let failure define you. This is your chance to shift your mindset, take control, and turn what feels like a setback into the fuel that powers your comeback. Stick with me. What we talk about today could change the trajectory of your life. Life inevitably includes setbacks. No matter how carefully you plan, how disciplined you are, or how much you desire success, there will be obstacles. At times it will feel like everything you've worked for is falling apart. The certainty you once had may vanish. The people you relied on may disappear, and the paths you were following may suddenly close. In those moments, you face a choice. You can either crumble or rise up stronger. Setbacks are not the end, they are opportunities. They serve as turning points, chances to rebuild with more insight, clarity, and strength. Yet most people don't view them that way. Many allow pain to halt their progress, let failure shape their identity, and confuse rejection with reality. Instead of rising, they freeze, give up, or settle. But that doesn't have to be your story. You can train yourself to respond differently. You can stand amidst the rubble and start rebuilding. You can reframe your loss, extract lessons, and refocus your energy. When you do this, when you choose to respond with strength, you transform into a different kind of person. You become unshakable, not because you are immune to struggle, but because you refuse to remain down. The most resilient people aren't those who never face challenges. They are the ones who always rise after every fall. They don't avoid breakdowns, they push through them, allowing these moments to shape, sharpen, and stretch them. And when they emerge, they're not just back to where they were, they are transformed. They don't return to who they were, they evolve into someone stronger. Every comeback begins with a decision to stop replaying what went wrong and start focusing on what to do next. It's a choice to stop giving power to the problem and begin using that energy to rebuild. It's a decision to stop asking, why me? And start asking, What now? Because setbacks don't hinder progress, a lack of response does. The only thing worse than failing is staying stuck in the story of your failure. At some point, you have to stop waiting for permission to move forward. You have to stop needing an apology, an explanation, or the perfect plan. You must choose strength. You must choose movement. You must choose the comeback. This decision is quiet, unassuming, and not made for an audience. It's quiet, internal, and happens in the dark and the silence. At the moment when you've had enough of being defined by defeat, once you make that decision, truly make it, you begin to move differently. You stop carrying shame, stop explaining yourself, stop seeking sympathy. You lock in, rise, and rebuild. Comebacks don't require perfection. They require persistence. They don't need a miracle. They need consistency. The most powerful stories you've ever heard didn't begin with victory. They began with collapse, devastation, and loss. But the hero didn't stop there. They kept going. And because they kept going, the story changed. Your setback doesn't define you. It's just a moment, a chapter, a challenge. It doesn't dictate the ending unless you allow it. You decide what happens next. And when you learn to take pain, loss, and rejection and use them to fuel your growth, nothing can hold you back for long. The first strategy is to face the truth without fear. When setbacks occur, the instinct is to run, to look away, to deny, to minimize, or to numb the pain. But you can't change what you won't confront. Even when it hurts, the truth is always the starting point of a real comeback. Transformation doesn't happen without honesty. A rebound doesn't occur without reality. Clarity doesn't come without confrontation. You must face the situation head on, not with panic, but with presence. Strip the story back to what really happened. What did I do? What did I allow? What pattern repeated? What decision led me here? Not to shame yourself, but to uncover the facts, because clarity is power. Most people get stuck not because the problem is too big, but because their ego is too loud. They'd rather protect their pride than rebuild their life. They want to be right more than they want to be free. But you can't grow through a setback if your identity is tied to the version of you that caused it. You have to be willing to evolve, and that starts with truth. You take a deep breath, sit down, and say, this is what happened. No more excuses, no more denial, no more distractions. This is where I am. This is what I lost. This is what I allowed. This is what I avoided. This is what I need to learn. And in that moment of honesty, the shift happens. That's where healing begins. You'll never heal while hiding from the truth. You can't move forward while dragging lies behind you. The truth might sting, but lies rot. They poison your progress and delay your comeback, keeping you stuck in shame when you should be building something new. When you tell the truth, you cut through confusion. You silence the noise, reclaim your power. Stop waiting for someone else to fix it. Stop seeking sympathy and stop asking for a redo. You begin designing your response. You take back the pen, your voice, and your future. This kind of truth isn't about reliving the pain. It's about removing the weight. Because when you tell the truth, you take the emotional charge out of the setback. You see it clearly. You stop dramatizing it. You stop defining yourself by it. You stop being the victim and start being the architect. You stop needing others to agree with your version of the story. When you're honest with yourself, you don't need validation from anyone else. You don't need to argue your point. You don't need to convince others to see it your way. Truth brings peace, and peace allows you to move forward. And here's the power of truth. It's where forgiveness lives. You can't forgive yourself for what you won't admit. You can't forgive others for what you keep bearing. But once you see it clearly, you can say, this happened, I own it, I release it, and I'm done carrying it. From that place, you can begin again. It doesn't mean it didn't matter. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It means it no longer holds your power. You've acknowledged it, faced it, and now you're using the lessons, the pain, and the insights to rebuild stronger, clearer, and better. There's nothing more courageous than telling yourself the truth, because it means you're done pretending, done performing, and done defending what broke you. Now you're ready for the real breakthrough, because true healing only happens in truth. Real freedom begins the moment you say, this is where I am, and I'm ready to rise. The second strategy is to separate failure from your identity. The setback is something you experienced, but it is not who you are. You lost a job, but that doesn't mean you lost your value. You made a mistake, but that doesn't make you a mistake. You fell short, but that doesn't mean you're broken. The setback happened to you, but it doesn't define you unless you let it. Most people don't come back, not because they're incapable, but because they internalize the fall and personalize the failure. They wrap their identity around the pain and start believing, this is who I am now. But you are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you decide to do next, and that decision starts when you stop labeling yourself based on one season. Failure is an event, not a personality trait or a permanent title. It's an experience, and a valuable one if you allow it to teach you instead of bury you. Every person you admire has failed more than they've succeeded. The difference is they didn't stop at failure. They didn't let one moment define their identity. You can't heal if you're still calling yourself names. You can't grow if you're holding on to shame. You can't create a comeback if you're dragging the belief that you're not worthy of one. At some point, you have to separate what happened from who you are. You have to stop saying, I'm not good enough, and start saying, that didn't work, but I will. This is the moment where self-compassion meets strength, where you stop punishing yourself and start supporting yourself. You speak to yourself with honesty, yes, but also with respect. You say, I didn't get it right, but I'm learning, I'm growing, and I'm not staying here. That voice, that energy marks the beginning of transformation, because identity drives behavior. If you see yourself as stuck, if you see yourself as a failure, you'll repeat failure. But if you shift your identity, even before results change, your actions will follow. You'll move like someone who's rebuilding, like someone who's rising, showing up like someone who still believes in their potential. One of the most important questions you can ask after a setback is, who do I believe I am right now? Not what did I do or what did I lose, but who am I choosing to become in this moment? Your comeback won't be powered by your resume. It will be powered by your identity, by the story you decide to tell yourself when everything feels uncertain. This doesn't mean ignoring what happened. It means not allowing it to control you. You extract the lesson without absorbing the lie. You rebuild your confidence from the inside out, not by pretending, but by choosing. Choosing to define yourself by your potential, not your past. And it's not a one-time choice. It's a daily decision. You will feel the pull to shrink. You will feel the weight of doubt. You will hear the old stories rise up. But every time you remind yourself, I am not what I went through, I am not what I lost, I am not the worst thing that happened to me, you take your power back. You anchor your identity in truth. You become someone who rises, not because you have to, but because that's who you are. That's what you do. You've stopped tying your worth to a result. You've started tying your worth to your resilience, your character, and your commitment to grow. That identity, anchored in strength rather than shame, will carry you through. The third strategy is to reconnect with your reason. When life gets tough, when plans fall apart, when loss knocks the wind out of you, and when everything you trusted crumbles, it's easy to lose sight of your why. You can disconnect from your mission, forget what you were fighting for, and without a compelling reason to rise, staying down can seem like the easier choice. What you need is not more motivation, but meaning. You need a reason that's deeper than the resistance, bigger than the pain, and louder than the fear. Setbacks bring doubt, shame, and confusion, and unless your reason is louder than those voices, you'll start to believe them. Your comeback begins the moment your purpose becomes non-negotiable. When you say, I don't care how heavy this feels, I'm not done. When you commit to the idea that this season won't define you because what you're building matters too much to quit, that's when the energy returns. That's when the spark reignites, not from external inspiration, but from internal alignment. Most people stay stuck, not because they can't move, but because they've lost sight of why it matters. They're disconnected from their deeper reason, the thing they're building, the legacy they're protecting, the person they're becoming. When the vision fades, the fight does too. That's why your reason needs to be personal and emotional. It can't be vague or borrowed, it has to be yours. You need a reason that grabs your heart, one that brings tears to your eyes when you think about quitting. A reason that makes comfort seem like a threat and mediocrity feel like betrayal. Maybe it's for your kids, your name, your future self, or the life you promised to build. Whatever it is, write it down, revisit it often, speak it out loud, make it a permanent fixture in your mind, because your reason will hold you up when everything else falls apart. When you're in the midst of a storm, logic won't save you, numbers won't save you. You need emotion, you need fire. You need something that reminds you why you started and convinces you not to stop. Stay connected to that reason. Reconnect by remembering who you were before the pain. Remember the promises you made to yourself. Remember the vision you had when you still believed. And then ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be on the other side of this? Because your comeback isn't just about recovery, it's about transformation. When your reason is clear, you stop bargaining with discipline, you stop negotiating with growth, you stop needing comfort to move forward. You move because it matters, because it's personal, because you understand what's on the line. Your reason brings focus. It keeps you from chasing distractions. It keeps you locked in when everything around you tries to pull you away. It gives you something to aim at when life buries you under noise. It won't always feel strong, and that's normal. But when it fades, revisit it. Remind yourself, write it again, speak it again. Refuse to let temporary discouragement erase your long-term direction. When you have a reason, you don't need perfect circumstances. You just need to remember who you are and what you're building. You need to keep moving imperfectly, inconsistently, and sometimes painfully, but still moving because your why is stronger than the setback. The fourth strategy is to shift your language, because the words you use to describe your situation shape your relationship with it. Every time you describe your life, you reinforce it. When you tell the story of your setback, you either empower your future or reignite your pain. Words are more than commentary, they are construction. They either build your comeback or keep you stuck in the cycle of breakdown. Most people don't realize how much damage their language does. They say things like, I'm just stuck, or nothing ever works out for me, or this always happens. Every time those words leave their mouth, their identity locks around the setback even tighter. What you speak becomes what you believe, and what you believe shapes your expectations, which in turn shapes your reality. If you want to recover, you need to speak from a different place, not from fear or frustration, but from truth, vision, and the person you are becoming, not the person who got knocked down. You don't deny the pain, but you don't give it the microphone. You don't keep rehearsing the same story if it keeps you small. Start noticing your language, not just around others, but especially when you're alone. How do you talk to yourself after a fall? The words you choose when describing your challenges, are they words of defeat or direction? Are you speaking like a victim or strength? Are you speaking like a victim or someone who's already begun to rise? Language has energy. It either drags you back or pulls you forward. So when you fall, don't say, I'm a failure. Say, that didn't work and now I'm adjusting. Don't say, I don't know what to do. Say, I'm learning what to do. Don't say, this broke me. Say, this stretched me and I'm coming back stronger. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about leading yourself. It's about telling the truth in a way that builds momentum instead of shame. Shame keeps you circling. Language rooted in growth moves you. It nudges you forward, giving your nervous system something new to believe. You'll feel the difference immediately. The moment you change how you speak about what happened, your body responds differently. Your energy shifts and you move with more intention. You breathe a little deeper because you're no longer reinforcing the narrative that you're helpless. You're rewriting it. When you get consistent with this, when you stop speaking defeat over your dreams and start speaking life into your potential, your mind will begin to seek solutions instead of threats. Your eyes will start to see possibilities instead of problems. People often underestimate the power of their daily words. They think breakthroughs come from one big external event, but most breakthroughs are the result of small, daily internal decisions to stop rehearsing defeat and start declaring direction. You can't always change what happened, but you can always change how you talk about it. That shift, though simple, is strategic. It will begin to rewrite the way you see yourself, how you approach problems, and how you hold your energy in the face of adversity. You've already survived what tried to break you. Now you need to stop repeating it like it still defines you. Stop describing your life like nothing can change. Stop telling stories that keep you in the past. Start speaking like someone who is healing, someone who is rebuilding, someone who knows they're not done yet. The fifth strategy is to rebuild momentum with small, decisive wins. When you're recovering from a setback, the biggest lie is that you have to do something big right away, that you need to fix everything overnight, or come back with a dramatic transformation. But comebacks don't start with breakthroughs, they start with basics. Small steps, clear actions, and tiny wins that remind your mind, I'm moving again. After a fall, your confidence takes a hit, your belief begins to fracture, and your identity feels shaken. If you try to leap too far, too quickly, you risk overwhelming yourself. You might freeze, talk yourself out of it, or simply feel paralyzed because your nervous system can't handle that jump all at once. It needs evidence, movement, and the rhythm of small victories stacked over time. So start small, pick something you can control today, something you've been avoiding, something that represents progress, not perfection. It might be making one phone call, writing one paragraph, taking a walk, cleaning one drawer, or finishing a task you left undone. It doesn't need to be impressive, but it must be intentional. Every time you follow through on a small win, you rebuild trust with yourself. You prove to your mind that you're no longer stuck. You remind your body what forward movement feels like, reinforcing the identity of someone who moves, who acts, who doesn't let resistance dictate the day. Momentum isn't magic. It's consistency. Once you take one step, the next becomes easier. Once you complete one task, your focus sharpens. Once you move, inertia works in your favor rather than against you. But you don't wait for it to happen. You build it. People stay stuck not because they don't care, but because they overthink the comeback. They make it too complicated, too distant. So they delay. They think, when I'm ready, I'll start. But readiness is a byproduct of action, not a prerequisite. You don't wait to feel ready. You move until you are. When you move consistently and stack small wins, the shift starts to happen. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, think differently, because momentum changes your perspective. What felt impossible last week feels manageable today. Your comeback becomes real, not just theoretical. Stacking small wins rewires your brain. Your mind learns through repetition, through follow-through. So every time you finish what you start, your brain makes a note, I can trust myself. And that trust becomes the foundation of resilience. Right now, you don't need to prove anything to anyone else. You just need to prove it to yourself that you're not defined by the setback, that you're not frozen in time, and that you're capable of moving forward even if it's at a slow pace. Don't confuse small with insignificant. One small decision can change the direction of an entire season. One tiny act of courage can unlock a flood of clarity. Never underestimate what can happen when you just begin. The sixth strategy is to protect your energy as if your future depends on it, because it does. After a setback, your energy is vulnerable. You're sensitive to noise, drained by overthinking, and tempted to respond to everything. But if you don't learn to guard your energy during the rebuild, you'll stay stuck longer than necessary. You'll spend the energy you need for your comeback managing opinions, regrets, and internal chaos. You only have so much energy each day, and it must be invested, not scattered. Your energy should be directed toward healing, building, and gaining clarity, not toward explaining yourself to people who won't understand, reliving what went wrong, or replaying conversations that have already ended. The fastest way to stay stuck is to give your attention to things that won't move you forward. It could be a conversation that doesn't need to happen, or dwelling on what you can't change. You stop waiting for a breakthrough and start creating it, one disciplined step at a time. When you're rebuilding, every ounce of energy must be focused forward. This means setting boundaries, not out of bitterness, but out of self-care and stewardship. You no longer allow everything into your space. You don't respond to every message, entertain every opinion, or carry every expectation. You're rebuilding, and that requires discipline. You must protect your inner environment. The words you speak to yourself, the thoughts you entertain, the tone you use when talking about your life. Energy is not just physical, it's mental, emotional, and spiritual. If you feel drained constantly, it's not always because you're working too hard. It might be because you're overthinking things that don't matter. To protect your energy, you must become selective. You stop living on autopilot. You choose what enters your mind, what leaves your mouth, what conversations you allow, what media you consume, and what stories you believe. Each time you make a decision that honors your future, you make your energy stronger. Here's the truth. Some people won't like your new boundaries. They were used to you being always available, always apologizing, always carrying the emotional weight of those around you. But when you start protecting your energy, some people will fall away. That's okay, let them. Your future requires a new version of you, and not everyone will have a seat at that table. You don't owe anyone access to your peace or your burnout. You don't need to explain why you're not answering every text or attending every event. Your comeback is sacred, your rebuild is personal, and anyone who truly cares for you will honor that process. You also have to protect your physical energy. Your body is the vessel that carries your comeback. If you're exhausted, undernourished, sleep deprived, or overstimulated, you won't have the capacity to move forward with strength. Take care of yourself. Rest, eat well, breathe deeply, and move your body. These are not luxuries, they are necessities. This is not the season to run yourself into the ground. It's the season to move with precision, to stay focused, and to cut the noise so you can hear your intuition again. Preserve your energy so you can pour it into the rebuild. As you protect your energy, your confidence will return, your mind will clear, and your direction will sharpen. You're no longer surviving off scraps or being depleted by everything around you. You're filled, stable, and ready to build something lasting. The seventh strategy is to recommit to discipline, even when motivation fades, especially when it fades. Your comeback doesn't wait for your emotions to cooperate. It doesn't care if you feel inspired. It just requires that you keep going with focus, integrity, and action, no matter what you feel. Setbacks have a way of draining motivation. They make everything feel heavier, slower, and less certain. And that's when the temptation arises to let go of habits, to stop showing up, to let discipline slip. But discipline is the point. Discipline is how you hold the line while you rebuild. It's how you prove that the version of you who rises is stronger than the version who fell. Most people wait until they feel ready to take action again. But feelings follow focus, and focus follows action. You don't sit around hoping to feel better. You move, you train, you execute. You make one decision, then the next. That's how discipline becomes part of your identity. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when it's inconvenient. It's putting your comeback on the calendar. It's getting up when it's easier to stay down. It's making the call, doing the rep, writing the plan, showing up for yourself even when no one's watching. And when you show up consistently enough, day after day, your comeback will no longer be a distant hope. It will be real. When you start using pain as a path, you stop seeing it as a prison that traps you. Instead, you begin to understand that the setback is part of your growth process, not your destruction. Pain is inevitable. It knocks the air out of your chest, leaves you confused, grieving, and questioning everything you thought would last. But it's not here to break you, it's here to shape you. The question isn't, why is this happening to me? But what is this pain teaching me? Pain is a teacher. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't sugarcoat. It simply reveals the truth. It shows you where you've ignored your instincts, where you've betrayed your boundaries, and where you've stayed in situations that no longer serve you. It tells you the truth about where you've been settling. When you resist pain, you allow it to fester and hide, replaying itself in different forms until you confront it. You can't heal what you won't feel. Avoiding pain only stores it, keeps it in the background, and brings it back in ways you don't expect. But when you step into pain with courage, when you ask, what is this here to teach me? You open yourself up to transformation. Pain becomes not a punishment, but a necessary part of your growth. This is where you begin to shift your mindset. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? ask, what is this building in me? Every painful experience becomes an opportunity for deeper learning and evolution. Pain is not the end. It's the beginning of something new, something stronger. Facing pain head-on, not dramatizing it or drowning in it, reveals hidden strength. It helps you access wisdom you never knew you had, and that wisdom becomes the foundation for your comeback. You stop seeing setbacks as a sign of defeat and start seeing them as part of your preparation, your redirection, your divine alignment. Sometimes a door closes not to destroy you, but to protect you from something that would have held you back. Using pain as a path lets you rise stronger, more aware, and more prepared for what's next. It's not about escaping the hurt, but embracing the transformation it brings. This shift in perspective gives you power over the pain, making it a stepping stone toward your comeback rather than a wall that stops you. You stop reliving the moment of your setback, and instead, you lean into the version of yourself that's emerging from it, the version that's stronger, wiser, and more grounded because of what you've endured. Pain doesn't mean failure. It means you dared to care, you risked, you believed, and now it's time to be brave enough to rebuild. But rebuilding doesn't mean rushing through the pain. It means sitting with it long enough to understand its lesson, to let the emotions soften, and to allow the fog to lift. It means trusting that even in the midst of this hardship, something meaningful is being born within you. Sometimes your most powerful clarity comes from your deepest confusion. Your greatest growth comes from your greatest loss, and your most beautiful beginnings often arise in the middle of your most painful endings. So instead of letting pain stop you, let it teach you. Let it soften you without making you fragile, strengthen you without hardening your heart. Pain should shape you into someone who can approach the next season of life with more wisdom, more resilience, and more gratitude than ever before. The ninth strategy is to get crystal clear on who you're becoming. After a setback, the worst thing you can do is try to return to who you were. The version of you that experienced the setback didn't survive it. You did. That version didn't carry the knowledge, wisdom, or strength that you now possess. Your goal is not to go back, but to evolve forward. You must become someone deeper, stronger, and wiser. Someone who's learned from the challenges and pain and is now ready to move forward with purpose. You can't create a powerful comeback if your focus is on rewinding to the past. You need vision, not just to fix what broke, but to reimagine who you're becoming. People who don't have vision tend to repeat the same mistakes, fall back into old patterns, and remain in environments that contributed to their setback. So ask yourself not just how you bounce back, but who are you becoming because of this experience? What habits need to die? What beliefs need to shift? What boundaries need to be built? What clarity have you gained that should now guide your decisions? When you get clear on who you're becoming, decisions become easier. You stop negotiating with your past self, and you stop letting others define you based on who you were. You begin to protect your space, and you start saying no more often, not out of arrogance, but out of focus. You know exactly who you're becoming, and anything that doesn't align with that vision has no place in your life. This is your chance to reset, not just your habits or your schedule, but your identity. You have the power to rewrite the narrative. You no longer need to carry the mistakes of your past as permanent labels. Healing doesn't come from dragging old stories into your new chapter. It comes from writing a new one, speaking and acting like the person you're becoming, even before you fully feel like them. This new version of you moves with clarity. They don't wait for applause or permission. They know what matters, and they've been through fire, carrying the lessons with them. They don't waste time or apologize for their growth. They show up with intention, and they protect what they're building. You build this new version of yourself by making aligned decisions, not emotional or dramatic ones. Quiet, grounded, repeated actions that reinforce your new identity. You make a plan, create structure, and build rhythm, saying, this is who I am now. This is how you transform from surviving to thriving. You are defined by your rise. Every setback, every challenge, every painful moment doesn't define you unless you let it. What defines you is how you choose to move forward, how you choose to transform the pain into power, the struggle into strength. And you don't need to do this alone. You have everything within you already to reclaim your narrative and shape your story. The comeback begins the moment you decide to step out of the ashes and walk forward with purpose. It's not about making grand gestures or shouting from the rooftops. It's about quietly and consistently making choices that align with your new identity, with the person you are becoming. The comeback is in the small, everyday acts of resilience. It's in the decision to get up when you'd rather stay down. It's in the discipline to keep moving forward, even when it feels like no one is watching, even when the breakthrough feels far away. The comeback is in the way you write the next chapter, not in the struggle of the previous one. The future doesn't care about the pain you've endured. It cares about who you're becoming in the aftermath. It's about how you close that chapter. It's about whether you let the story of your setbacks hold you hostage or whether you use it as a platform to rise stronger. You get to decide the ending of the story. And the best part? The comeback is not a destination, but a journey of self-discovery, of growth, and of unwavering belief in your own ability to rebuild, to transform, and to rise again. So write your story, not in the voice of defeat, but in the voice of victory. It's your comeback, it's your time. That's the essence of resilience, not waiting for perfection or certainty, but choosing to act despite the fear, doubt, or lack of clarity. The comeback doesn't hinge on erasing the past. It's about embracing the journey and recognizing that your growth is rooted in the challenges you faced. Every setback holds a lesson, and every step forward, no matter how small, adds up to the transformation that shapes the person you are becoming. You don't need validation from the past because the strength you're building is coming from within. The true power of a comeback isn't in the applause or the recognition. It's in the quiet determination to rise again with even more wisdom, more clarity, and more purpose than before. Your comeback is personal. It's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about showing up consistently, staying grounded in your growth, and being committed to your journey. The fact that you are here, reflecting, learning, and choosing to rise again speaks volumes about the strength you've always had inside you. And that's the message to hold on to. You are in control of your narrative. You define your future with the actions you take today. The setback is a chapter, but it's not the conclusion. Your story's still being written, and the rest of it is full of possibility, of growth, and of a future that you are actively creating. So rise, not out of reaction, but as a declaration of who you are becoming, stronger, wiser, and ready for the next chapter. Your comeback is already in motion. If you take nothing else away from this video, remember this: setbacks are not the end of your story. They're just the beginning of a new chapter. The strategies we've discussed today aren't just ideas. They're the tools you need to reshape your future. No matter how far you've fallen, no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you have the power to rise again, stronger and wiser than before. The key is not to wait for the perfect moment or the perfect circumstances, but to take that next step forward, no matter how small. You already have everything inside you to turn your setback into your greatest comeback. So, if you're ready to reclaim your power and rewrite your story, now's the time to act. Your comeback starts today. What will you do next?